Okay, my friends, another shocker du jour. I have been trying to put together all the pieces of all the different populations of the world and what they had to say about their ancient past. And I'm finding virtually all of them have almost the same story. Now we're going to be talking about ancient Mesopotamian, which is Sumerian, Mesopotamian. I believe they're all in the same area there. And then the Enuma, Elish, and their gods in relation to the Greek, the Roman, and all the rest of them. And Appolodorus wrote about Typhon. Now the first thing I'm going to show you is about Typhon. They had the same guy, with different names, same guy. And it goes on and on and on with all of them. All right, let's just start with the beginning, because I'm looking at all the different religions and all the different cultures, what they had to say. Now, this only goes back to 1200 BC. All right, that's about 3,500 years ago. And it says in the Enuma Elish, which was dated here at 1200 BC, the god Marduk kills Tiamat, the mother of the gods, and from her two halves of her carcass constructs the heavens and the earth to shape the modern observable cosmos. That's in the Enuma Elish, and that's only 1200 BC. That's 3,500 years ago. And that is about the Mesopotamian, Sumerian, and all of that sort of information that they had back then. Now this is in the Nag Hammadi text. Jesus said, "Whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse, and whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world." So Jesus said the world is a corpse. And he also says up here in number 80, Jesus said, "He who has recognized the world has found the body. He who has found the body is superior to the world." And he says you keep looking until you find. And this was his words spoken when he was here on earth to his scribe, Doubting Thomas, and he wrote them all down. He said, Jesus said, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." Whatever that means. But this is from the Nag Hammadi text, all hidden secret texts, all come to light 1945. And it seems to be fulfilling the claims that were made in these texts, that these things are going to happen in these end times. And it seems to be coming to fruition as far as I'm concerned. Now here's the myth of Typhon. A monster in Greek mythology has some similarities to Mesopotamian stories. It's exactly identical. This is the Sumerian poem, tells the story of Ninurta, which will be Zeus or Jupiter, was a Mesopotamian storm god, battled against a monster, a sage, or a sage, however you pronounce it, who would be Typhon. A sage is a hissing offspring of the earth. Mother Earth gave birth to that monster to attack the gods. And he challenged Ninurta's rule. He went right against the gods, and the two set fire to the landscape during their fight, similar to Typhon, exactly identical to Typhon. A sage initially wins, but is eventually defeated by Ninurta, who is Zeus, who uses winds and floods as weapons and lightning. Now don't forget, this is the two monsters are the same two monsters that Zeus and Typhon in the Greek. And also, they all had the same stories. Even in the Bible, they had stories about Leviathan and so forth, but they were all sort of smooshed around as time goes on. I go back to the earliest text, Appolodorus, and it's scary. All right, this was all true, it appears to me. There was giants, there was monsters, there was dragons. I'll show you Typhon in a second, right in the desert. I've shown him 1,000,000 times. I know 99% of you have seen it already. I don't care. You can see it again. when the gods had overcome the giants, the gods, which was Zeus, he killed all the giants. The giants were the children of Earth. So Earth got enraged, had intercourse with Tartarus, and brought forth Typhon, which is this hissing monster. It's a hybrid between man and beast. His size and strength outpassed everything on Earth. The thighs were human and all the rest. His head often brushed the stars. All right, he was a flash, a loud hissing emitted. They talked about. He was the child of Earth and Tartarus, exactly what the Sumerians say. And he went and emitted a loud hissing, and he rushed at the heavens, spouting a great jet of fire from his mouth. And the gods saw him rushing at the heavens. They made for Egypt in flight, and being pursued, they changed their forms into animals, and that was the fish. And here it is right here. There's Typhon right there, all the way across North Africa. Here's his thighs like a human. These here are coils. There's the fish he attacked, spouting a great jet of fire. Shown this a bazillion times. And his throat was cut right here by Zeus's great and mighty sword. This is his throat. That's the throat of the dragon. There he is, spitting out all his fire at the fish, who was one of the gods, changed herself into a fish. And that's all the spit. This is just runoff of a dead, decaying body, but this is not. Right here is where his throat got cut with a great and mighty sword, right across there. And it's bleeding out in the desert right here. Still is today. Every time they get extra water here, it comes down, and plants grow in the desert because they love the red blood. All right, so that is Typhon. Now, he runs all the way across North Africa, and his throat is cut here. And they knew this in 1375. And you say, whoa, Roger, how could you know that? Well, here's how I know it. I can show you. Okay, here's the support for my claims. This is a map that goes back to 1375. It's called the Atlas Catalan Abraham Kresk. I have no links to it, so don't ask me for any of that, because I just got it somehow. I don't even remember how. Long time ago. This is Italy and Spain and all this. This is the Mediterranean Sea. This is actually the Red Sea. You see it? This was, and look at how detailed this thing is. Look at this. Now, every guy, it appears, had his own little kingdom surrounding him, and he would control who ran what little districts. And each one of them had his own little throne here at this particular time. And the biggest big guy, I guess, was this guy here, I think. I think he was the top shot. I don't know. I believe so. But they were all like king-looking things, and all kind. Now, how do I know Typhon was here? Here he is, right here. That's him, right across North Africa. There's his tail way out there. These are all dragon scales. It comes back to here where his throat was cut. That's where his throat was cut. You see that? They knew it. And these are all dragon scales. So they knew he ran all the way across here, and he does. He runs all the way across there. There's his flared tail way out at the end. And this is all dragon all the way across. I mean, the dragon's tail's right here. There's no question here. If you can't understand that, you got issues. All right, this is a little swale here. And the blood has run down into that and drained out. That's what happens with the blood. It congeals down in there and sort of leaks out over time. Way out at the end is the flare that they show in the map. It's right here. It turns into like feathers. You'll see them in a second. It takes a while for it to... But you see them? They turn into like feathers out here. Again, it'll take a minute to lock in there, but you see what they are? So, but they are the flared end of his tail. This is a better shot right here. That's what feathers look like. Yeah, well, see. That's right there. And they end up right here. They're green. Feathers make things grow green. So at any rate, that's Typhon. They knew he was here. He's on that map. There's no secret here. And this only goes back to 1375, so they knew then. Of course, then we became enlightened and laughed at all these people. Can you imagine the effort to do this? And how they knew all of this coordinates, and I have no idea what they mean, but they focus in on the Red Sea right there. And there's gigantic focus there. If somebody knows what they mean, it would be interesting. And it is what it is. Okay, this is actually backwards. They're saying that Typhon, a monster in Greek mythology, that's true, Typhon is a monster in Greek mythology, has some similarities to the Mesopotamian stories. Now, the late 3rd millennium BC Sumerian poem tells the story of Ninurta, a Mesopotamian storm god, who they think is like Typhon, battling the monster a sage. A sage is a hissing offspring of the earth who is actually Typhon. So a sage is actually Typhon. It's not Ninurta is Typhon. They have it backwards. And the two set fire to the landscape during their fight, similar to Typhon. A sage initially wins, but is eventually defeated by Ninurta, who uses wind and floods as weapons. They just have it backwards. Typhon is eventually destroyed by, in this case, it would be a sage. All right, I don't know if I got that right or wrong, but I don't care. Zeus was the one who killed Typhon. He cut him with his great and mighty sword, and here he is laying in the desert. Here he is right there with the slash across his great and mighty throat. And all of this stuff, like I say, this is it. Oh, I think this is a guy right here, Musafa, I think was his name, and he's holding the globe in his hand. He runs everything. So that must be his spot. I don't know. I have no idea, but it's very, very cool. And they have all kinds. They talk about what's going on in these areas. There's a dragon over here. There's places where they have giants and all kinds of crazy things, and devils. And anyway, that's the way it was in 1375. And like I said, the crazy thing is, this is Typhon, a gigantic, 1,200 miles long, and his throat is cut right exactly where it shows on a map. His throat is cut right there, and all the red blood is bleeding out into the desert, making things grow green. And feathers and blood make things grow green. And guess what else? Over here in the United States, we got Quetzalcoatl right there, who also was the god of wind and storms, and he's creating Tornado Alley. I'm telling you right now, these feathers right off his head, right off a little rock, is creating this turbulence which causes the severe storms. These are feathers. And I've shown this very, very many. I just did a couple of them just recently, trying to make this understood. These are feathers. See that? These are feathers. See how cool that is? And that's just what they are. Now, he's shown exactly as he looks right here today. You can look at him. There's his head. This is a different color because that's a different kind of scales or something. These are feathers. That's why they grow so green. All of that is feathers. These are his beards right here. This is his throat. It comes all the way around, all the way up here, all the way up the East Coast. And there's his tail feathers up here. Exactly, precisely as shown on the ancient glyphs. All right, so don't forget, this is my claim. This is Tornado Alley, right in here, having all the terrible storms. This is where he's spitting out into the Gulf. It was attacking something out here. This is his head, and his body runs all the way up the East Coast into the Green Mountains, and they're green because they're feathers. Feathers make things grow green. That's his headdress. This is the scales or whatever was on his body. That's Florida. It's just, it is what it is. And he was the god of wind and rain. Now let me show you something else. All right, there he is right there. There's no difference whatsoever. His beards are coming out, his feathered headdress is all up there, his tail has all these feathers. These are the glyphs. I mean, he's eating some kind of gigantic human. I mean, think of the size of the human he'd be eating if this was Quetzalcoatl, which it is. Now, here's where the weather comes in. You see, I showed the feathers. This is Quetzalcoatl, and here's where his head is right here, spitting out into the Gulf. And this is where all of the turbulence happens, right up here. This is Tornado Alley. And here's Quetzalcoatl. He's right there, spitting out into the Gulf, right there. And this is where all the, and they're having some terrible, terrible problems. And I think I understand that too. It's just expansion of the gases in the envelope that surrounds the Earth. It's just too much compression. And that's due to burning too much stuff. We got problems with other things too. Invasive cancers in kids now, they're getting problems. This is that interstitial layer. I'll be talking about that later, but they don't like me talking about medical things. So I'm not going to talk about medical things. But anyway, this is just reality. I never make statements that are not backed up and supported by some reality. I'm not just spouting off saying, oh, you shouldn't do this or you should do that or anything, or you should believe this or you shouldn't believe that. Here it is. You believe whatever you want. I've made my determination that, as far as I'm concerned, mythology is pretty damn close to reality. And Jesus Christ came here to warn us that this stuff is insane, but true. Total insanity. Absolute total way off the edge insanity. Now, how could you come back to here without having the evidence I have? Now, I have all this evidence and people just laugh still. I have all kinds of evidence, but just think about Jesus Christ. He comes back and says, hey, all that stuff is real. You guys are in trouble, and and they treat him like he was insane, trying to overthrow society, cause problems. Had no real evidence, I wouldn't imagine, to support what he was saying, other than faith, which is the most important thing you could have. And a lot of people say, oh, I didn't need any of this to have faith in Jesus Christ. And I said, you're the selected ones then, because I never did have faith in anything, to be honest with you. I'm a material scientist. I want to see something to support my side of the equation. And now I have so much on my side, the other side doesn't matter. The other side is zero. So now I do know, and the only thing I can think of was Jesus Christ was sent here by the God that owns us, that developed us, that created us, and decided he should be respected and you know, we should have done the things that he said. These are the 10 commandments. These are the kind of things I want you to do and the things I don't want you to do. Whatever that side of it is. And then if you don't do those things, then you're in trouble. Now, a lot of people didn't know about those things. They didn't know. I didn't know about them, so I did a lot of things I shouldn't have done. I sort of knew about them, but I didn't really know about them, and now I do know about them, and I'm sorry for everything I've ever done that I shouldn't have done. And there's a lot to be sorry for, and I hope somehow I can be forgiven. And that's all I can say. And Jesus Christ gives me that hope. Gives me that hope. Because you don't die and it's the end. As far as I'm concerned, that's just not the case. Something happens to you. Somewhere your spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, ends up in some other realm, and it could be extremely terrible. From what I've been looking into, and Jesus Christ said that too. He said, you better find me, or you could be in serious trouble. And that just appears to be the case. As far as I can determine, if all this other stuff is real, which it appears to be, what do you do after that? Just dismiss, that other stuff can't be real? Yes, it can be real. And again, my only way that I can see this, Jesus Christ coming in, that's a pretty solid statement. He was here, he was tortured, he was ridiculed, he was destroyed, crucified, died physically. And then from then on, it's sort of, it's documented, but was there any serious evidence other than the Shroud of Turin? And that does seem to be some pretty good evidence. Now, I wouldn't know to say that was 100% certain, the Shroud of Turin, but it could certainly be, because I believe he did come back for 11 and a half years after he was dead, and Doubting Thomas put his fingers inside his wound to make sure it was really him. And he worked with his mother Mary Magdalene. He worked with all his disciples, and he told them all the mysteries. Well, he told them up to the first mystery. This is where it gets mysterious, because this is where you have to look into Pistis Sophia, and that's something that nobody's ever. Well, not a lot of people do, because it's just one of those crazy things. How could you believe it? That's the key. How could you ever believe it? Well, seeing what I have found, and found what I have seen, and being directed to find what I have found. I'm going to just tell you right now, here's a story. I woke up one morning, and I said to my wife, there's something in the woods calling my name. I went out, I found giant human body parts, no question whatsoever what they were. I started looking it up, and something came up and said, these things are for you to see, and for others as a test. Blew me away. Could never find that again. It went away very quickly. I don't know. This goes back 15 years or so. So nobody would discuss it with me. They were all calling me crazy, and Yale and everybody. They just refused to do anything. So I ended up getting a CAT scan, DNA tested, and all that stuff. And all came back. I was right. And still nothing. And still nothing to this day from anybody in academia, because it overthrows everything you're talking about. This just makes all they're saying about the earth and about the ages and about history and archaeology and geology and everything. It makes it silly. And they know that, so they're protecting themselves behind those ivy-covered walls. So that's where we are right at the moment. Okay, I hope you understand. This is Quetzalcoatl. There's just virtually no question about it. And these are the Green Mountains, which is his tail feathers way up here. And in between, he has to poop somewhere. And here's where he poops. Right there, Washington, D.C. That's it right there. That is the seat of power. The toilet seat of power. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. I was never going to say anything about this, but it's just too crazy. It's just too crazy. Here it is, right there. Boom. And I showed you about Scorpzilla, and they all have the same thing with Typhon. They all have one. I mean, everyone that's got one, everyone that is somebody has one, whether you're a creature or not. You got to get rid of your poop. And they all go to one place, Washington, D.C.